"Colonel Mitchell, you're under arrest." Those 5 words echoed across Arlington National Cemetery as my stepfather was about to receive the Medal of Honor. 200 Gold Star families gasped, 12 veterans in wheelchairs smiled, and Colonel James Mitchell, the man who'd called me a diversity hire for 20 years, finally realized his stepdaughter was Deputy Director of the FBI. "Sophia?" he gasped, seeing me step forward with my badge. "What is this? What did you do?" "My job," I said, "the one you called embarrassing to real patriots." That's when Marcus Williams locked his wheelchair brakes and stood on pure upper body strength alone. "Remember me, Colonel. You signed off on the armor that put me in this chair." Then Jennifer Park rising on her prosthetic leg. Then David Thompson fighting through his traumatic brain injury to stand. One by one, 12 veterans rose from their wheelchairs, their prosthetics, their broken bodies. 12 soldiers he'd crippled for cash. "My name is Sophia Torres, and this is how I destroyed the man who said I wasn't real family. But to understand how we got here, how a decorated war hero ended up sobbing in handcuffs while his victims watched, I need to take you back 20 years. I was 8 years old when my mother Eleanor married Colonel James Mitchell. Before that, it was just me and Mom in our cramped Oakland apartment, surviving on her social worker's salary after my father died in a construction accident when I was 3. Mom worked for Oakland's foster care system, coming home every night with stories she couldn't tell and pain she couldn't shake. Kids nobody wanted, families torn apart, cases that would haunt her dreams. Here was this man, James, offering stability, security, a house on base with a real backyard. James swept into our lives like something out of a recruiting poster. 6'2", square jaw, chest full of ribbons, that command voice that made everyone stand straighter. "Elena deserves better than this," he said, looking around our apartment like it was contaminated. "And little Sophia here needs structure, discipline, a real father figure." Sophia. He called me Sophia once, decided it sounded too ethnic, and switched to calling me Elena's daughter instead. The first week after they married, he sat me down for what he called integration training. "Listen carefully," he said, his voice all military authority. "I'm doing your mother a favor here. She's a good woman who made some poor choices before me. You're part of that package, and I accept that. But this family runs on my rules, my standards, my decisions. Are we clear?" I was 8. I didn't understand what he really meant, not yet. By the time I was 10, the rules were crystal clear. When his biological kids visited, Sarah and Michael from his first marriage, I gave up my room and slept on a cot in the laundry room. "Blood family needs proper accommodations," he'd say, like I was some foreign exchange student who'd overstayed her welcome. When I won the 4th grade science fair, he told his poker buddies, "These participation trophy generations, I swear. In my day, you had to actually earn recognition." But when Sarah won her school spelling bee, he framed the certificate and hung it in his office. When I made honor roll, silence. When Sarah got a B+ in math, she's trying her best, that's what matters. When I got a B+ in PE, hour-long lecture about not applying myself and disappointing the family name. Except it wasn't my family name. He made sure I knew that. "You're lucky I let you use Mitchell at school," he said once when I was 12. "Technically, you haven't earned that name. It's borrowed like everything else in this house." When I spoke Spanish with my grandmother on the phone, he'd hang up the call. "This is an American household. We speak English. Your grandmother needs to adapt or stop calling." Mom tried to intervene sometimes in her quiet way. "James, she's just a child." "Which is why she needs proper guidance, Elena. You were too soft on her before. That's how kids end up entitled and confused about their place in the world." My place. He loved that phrase. Everything was about knowing your place, staying in your place, being grateful for your place. The breaking point came when I was 16. I'd just been accepted to Stanford with a full scholarship. I was shaking with excitement, waiting for dinner to share the news. This was it, I thought. This achievement was so big, so undeniable, that even James would have to acknowledge it. Mum was working late, another emergency removal, another kid being pulled from a dangerous home, So it was just me, James, and his kids who were visiting for the weekend. I got into Stanford, I blurted out over pot roast. Full scholarship. They said my essay was one of the best they'd ever... Stanford? James cut his meat, not looking up. That's in California, right? Yes, and these schools have quotas to fill, Sophia. Especially for, your demographic. 2 boxes checked at once, female and minority. Very efficient for their statistics. Sarah laughed. Actually laughed. Dad's right. My friend got rejected from Stanford with perfect SATs. But she was just regular white. No diversity points. I earned this, I said quietly. James finally looked up. I'm sure you did, in your own way. But let's not pretend it's the same as Sarah getting into Virginia Tech. That's actual merit. Traditional standards. James, Michael added, maybe we should congratulate her. It's still good for someone like her. Someone like her. That night I made a decision. I would become so successful, so undeniably excellent, that James Mitchell's opinion would become as irrelevant as he'd tried to make me feel. Stanford was everything James said it wouldn't be. I wasn't a diversity statistic, I was a standout. Criminal justice major, summa cum laude, law review editor, intern at 3 federal agencies. My professors didn't see quotas when they looked at me. They saw potential. Senior year I had offers from the FBI, CIA, and NSA. I chose the FBI, specifically their new Defense Fraud Division. Want to know why? Because during my thesis research on military contracting, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. The scope of corruption in defense procurement. Billions of dollars meant for protecting soldiers being siphoned off by contractors and the officers who enabled them. The day I graduated from Quantico, I called home. James answered. FBI, huh? His chuckle was dismissive. Well, they need diversity in all departments these days. Just remember, Sophia, the real work gets done by people with actual experience. Street agents, military liaisons, not desk jockeys with sociology degrees. It's criminal justice, actually. And I graduated. Sure. Hey, make sure you don't embarrass the family name, okay? Mitchell carries weight in military circles. Don't tarnish it with some diversity hire scandal. I hung up and decided that would be the last time I'd share any career success with James Mitchell. For the next 10 years, I let him believe whatever made him feel superior. When I made special agent in charge at 28, he told people I was doing filing work for the government. When I was promoted to deputy director at 38, the youngest in the division's history, he said I had a little desk job that keeps her out of trouble. Meanwhile, I was leading operations that saved military lives, investigating contractors who sold defective equipment, recovering hundreds of millions in fraud, briefing senators on threats James couldn't even imagine with his weekend warrior National Guard experience. But I kept quiet. Partly because my work was classified, but mostly because I'd learned that James Mitchell's ego was as fragile as the armor some contractors were selling to our troops. Then 5 years ago, everything changed. I was investigating a company called Titan Defense Systems. They'd been selling body armor to the military that passed all the standard tests, but failed catastrophically in specific combat conditions. The ceramic plates would spiderweb on impact instead of dispersing force, sending shrapnel into the wearer's body instead of protecting them. Soldiers weren't dying. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they were coming home paralyzed, permanently disabled, facing lifetimes of surgeries and pain. Titan had done the math. Disability payments and medical care were handled by the VA, not them. As long as soldiers survived, the defect was hard to trace back to the armor. As I dug through approval chains and sign-off documents, one name kept appearing, Colonel James Mitchell. At first, I told myself it was coincidence. Mitchell was a common name, maybe another James Mitchell. But no, it was him, my stepfather, the man who preached honor at every family dinner while selling out soldiers for money. The payments were clever, almost invisible. 50,000 here labeled as consulting fees for a company that didn't exist. 75,000 there routed through his brother's construction business for renovation work that never happened. Small enough to avoid automatic flags, consistent enough to add up to millions. I printed everything out and sat in my office until dawn, reading payment records while comparing them to injury reports. Sergeant Marcus Williams, 23, paralyzed from the chest down when his armor failed to stop shrapnel. Corporal Jennifer Park, 26, lost her left leg when ceramic fragments severed her femoral artery. Lieutenant David Thompson, 29, traumatic brain injury from armor that cracked instead of holding. 12 soldiers, 12 young Americans who'd trusted their equipment, trusted their officers, trusted the system. Now they were in wheelchairs, on prosthetics, relearning how to speak, how to walk, how to live. All because James wanted a boat, a vacation home, a portfolio for retirement. I ran to the bathroom and vomited until my throat burned. Then I sat on the cold tile floor and cried. For those soldiers, for my mother who had no idea who she'd married, for the 8-year-old girl who'd just wanted a father. When I finally pulled myself together, I had a choice to make. Report it immediately and destroy my mother's life overnight, or build an airtight case while protecting James from other investigations until the moment was right. I chose to wait. For 5 years I documented everything while simultaneously protecting him from 3 separate investigations that could have exposed him. I told myself it was for Mom, but really, I think I was still that 8-year-old, hoping he'd somehow become the father I needed. 3 months ago, that hope died. James called Mom to announce his Medal of Honor, the highest military decoration awarded for his actions in Afghanistan 15 years ago. He'd genuinely saved lives that day, shown real heroism under fire. There's going to be a ceremony at Arlington, he told Mom over Sunday dinner. I was there, like always, playing the role of the grateful stepdaughter. Full military honors, media coverage. The president might even attend. That's wonderful, Mom beamed. We're so proud of you, aren't we, Sophia? Of course, I said, smiling the smile I'd perfected over 20 years. Actually, James said, cutting his steak with surgical precision, about the ceremony. The guest list is pretty limited. It's really just for immediate family. Real family. Blood relatives. The words hung in the air like smoke from a discharged weapon. James, Mom said carefully, Sophia is family. She's been your daughter for— Stepdaughter, he corrected. And this is different, Elena. The families attending have lost real children in service, real sons and daughters who made real sacrifices. It would be disrespectful to have someone there who's just— He gestured at me dismissively. Adjacent to military service. Adjacent. I was investigating defense fraud that had crippled soldiers while he was committing it, and I was adjacent. Besides, he continued, warming to his theme like he always did when explaining why I didn't quite measure up. My kids from my first marriage will be there, people who share my blood, my name, my legacy. Michael's followed my footsteps into service. Sarah married a Marine. They understand what this means. I understand, I said quietly. Do you? He looked at me with that familiar condescension. This isn't some participation trophy, Sophia. This is the Medal of Honor. The men who'll be there, the families. They've bled for this country. They've sacrificed in ways your little government job could never touch. Little government job. You're absolutely right, I said, standing to clear my plate. I wouldn't want to take up space meant for someone more deserving. He relaxed, satisfied that I'd accepted my exclusion without a fight. Mom looked hurt but didn't push. She'd learned, like I had, that challenging James only made things worse. That night, I opened the file I'd been building for 5 years. Financial records spanning back a decade. Email chains discussing acceptable loss ratios. Contracts approved despite failed safety tests. Photos of soldiers in wheelchairs, on prosthetics, in physical therapy. Then I did something that changed everything. I cross-referenced the guest list for James's ceremony with the soldiers injured by equipment he'd approved. 200 Gold Star families would be attending, but also invited were wounded warriors, veterans who'd survived but been forever changed by their service. 12 of them had been injured by Titan defense equipment, 12 veterans who thought they were attending to honor a hero, not realizing they'd be sitting next to the man who'd sold their bodies for profit. I made 3 phone calls that night. The first was to Director Patricia Hawkins. Torres, it's midnight. This better be important. Director, I need to discuss the Mitchell file. The Mitchell file? You closed that years ago. I need to reopen it immediately, full activation. The pause told me she understood this was personal. Your stepfather? Yes, ma'am. He's receiving the Medal of Honor in 3 months. And 12 veterans who will be attending that ceremony were paralyzed by equipment he approved for bribes. Jesus Christ, you're certain? 5 years of documentation, every payment traced, every injury documented. Why didn't you? Because I thought family meant protecting each other even when they don't deserve it. I was wrong. Is this revenge, Torres? No, ma'am. This is justice. Those veterans deserve to know why they're in wheelchairs. The second call was to Sergeant Marcus Williams. Sergeant Williams, this is Deputy Director Sophia Torres with the FBI. I'm calling about your injury in Afghanistan. My injury? Ma'am, that was 5 years ago. The armor failed. They said it was a manufacturing defect that couldn't have been predicted. They lied. The defect was known and documented. The officer who approved that armor was paid to overlook the safety failures. Silence, then. Who? Who did this to me? Colonel James Mitchell. He's receiving the Medal of Honor next month. You're invited to the ceremony. The sound he made, half sob, half rage, will haunt me forever. He's getting a medal while I'm in this chair? Not if I can help it, Sergeant. Not if I can help it. The third call was the hardest. It was to Mom. Mija, it's late. Is everything okay? Mom, I need to tell you something about James. Can you come to my apartment tonight? Sophia, you're scaring me. Please, Mom, just come. She showed up 30 minutes later in her pajamas and coat, hair messy, fear in her eyes. I showed her everything. The payments, the injuries, the photos of young soldiers learning to walk on prosthetics. She didn't cry, didn't scream, just sat there aging 10 years in 10 minutes. I knew, she finally whispered. Not the details, but I knew something was wrong. The extra money, the drinking, the way he'd wake up screaming names I didn't recognize. Mom! I chose not to see it, just like I chose not to see how he treated you, because seeing it meant admitting I'd married a monster for security. Now she was crying, 20 years of denial crumbling. I failed you, Mija. My own daughter. My blood. I let him make you feel like nothing because I was afraid of being alone again. You didn't fail. Yes, I did, but not anymore. She pulled out her phone. I'm calling a divorce lawyer first thing tomorrow. Mum, you don't have to. Yes, I do. 20 years too late, but yes, I do. Those broken kids I try to save every day at work. I couldn't even save my own daughter in my own home. The next 3 months moved like a military operation. Director Hawkins assembled a task force. We built an airtight case. Every payment traced through shell companies back to James. Every piece of equipment tracked from approval to injury. Every email recovered. Every contract documented. But more importantly, we prepared the 12 veterans. Marcus Williams learned to transfer from his wheelchair to the witness stand without assistance. He wanted to stand on his own power when confronting James. Jennifer Park practiced walking on her prosthetic without her cane. She wanted James to see what his greed had cost her. David Thompson worked with his speech therapist for hours. The TBI made talking difficult, but he was determined to say his piece clearly. They weren't victims anymore. They were warriors preparing for one last mission. 2 weeks before the ceremony, Sarah Mitchell called me. Sophia, it's Sarah. You're James's daughter. I know who you are, Sarah. Look, I don't know what you think you're doing, but Dad told us you're not coming to the ceremony. It's really petty to be jealous about. Sarah, your father is going to be arrested at that ceremony. Silence. That's not funny. It's not a joke. He took bribes to approve defective equipment. Soldiers were paralyzed because of him. You're lying. You've always been jealous of us, of real family. I have 5 years of evidence. FBI Director Hawkins will be there with federal agents. You can either hear it from me now or watch it happen live. She hung up on me. Michael called an hour later. What the hell are you trying to pull? The truth, Michael. Something your father isn't familiar with. He's a war hero. He was. Once. Then he became something else. You're destroying him because he didn't invite you? That's sick. 12 veterans in wheelchairs would disagree. He hung up too. But Mom stood by me, filed for divorce, moved into a small apartment, started therapy, started healing. The morning of the ceremony, I woke up at 4 a.m., put on my best black suit, my FBI badge, my service weapon. Not because I planned to use it, but because I wanted James to see everything I'd become while he was calling me a diversity hire. Arlington National Cemetery at 10 a.m. Perfect weather, clear skies, gentle breeze, American flags rippling like waves. The kind of day that makes what happened feel even more obscene. By 9:30, families were arriving, Gold Star families in their Sunday best, wounded warriors in dress uniforms, medals pinned to wheelchairs, prosthetics polished to shine. Director Hawkins and 12 agents were positioned strategically. We weren't hiding. We wanted James to see us coming. We wanted him to understand that his choices had consequences. At 9:45, James arrived, full dress uniform, medals gleaming, back straight. Every inch the war hero he'd once been. Sarah and Michael flanked him. His brother was there, some cousins, military colleagues. Mum was absent. He'd tried calling her all week, but she hadn't answered. At 9:55, James stepped to the podium for the pre-ceremony gathering. 200 families before him, media behind them, military brass watching. He began his speech, his voice carrying that authority that had once made me desperate for his approval. We gather today not to celebrate war, but to honor sacrifice. The men and women here understand the true cost of freedom. They've paid prices that can never be repaid. That's when Marcus Williams locked his wheelchair brakes and pulled himself to standing using just his upper body strength. James saw him and smiled, probably thinking it was a show of respect. "Sergeant Williams," James said into the microphone, "thank you for your service and your sacrifice." "My sacrifice?" Marcus's voice carried across the silent cemetery. "You mean when your approved armor failed and severed my spine?" The silence was deafening. James's face went white. "I don't know what your—" Jennifer Park stood up on her prosthetic. "Or my sacrifice, when the armor you signed off on cost me my leg." David Thompson struggled to his feet, his words slow but clear despite the TBI. "Or my sacrifice, when shrapnel that should have been stopped, destroyed my brain." One by one, all 12 stood. Wheelchairs, prosthetics, canes, walkers, all standing to face the man who'd sold their bodies for cash. "These soldiers," Director Hawkins's voice cut through the chaos as she approached the podium, "were injured by defective equipment you approved for bribes, Colonel Mitchell." She held up her badge. "FBI, you're under arrest." The crowd erupted. Cameras flashed. Someone screamed. James tried to run. Let me repeat that. A 58-year-old man in full dress uniform tried to run through Arlington National Cemetery, past the graves of real heroes, past wounded warriors he'd betrayed, past families who'd lost everything. He made it about 20 feet before his dress shoes slipped on the grass. He went down hard, medals scattering across the ground like worthless coins. I walked over and stood above him as he tried to scramble up. "Still think I'm just a diversity hire, James?" He looked up at me, grass stains on his pristine uniform, and for the first time in 20 years, James Mitchell had nothing to say. "Deputy Director Sophia Torres," I said, showing him my badge. "FBI Defense Fraud Division. You know, that little government job you kept mocking." "You did this," he gasped. "You vindictive piece of garbage." "Vindictive?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "James, I protected you for 5 years, buried 3 investigations, took heat from my own department, all because I thought somewhere deep down you saw me as family." The agents pulled him to his feet, cuffing him. "But then you reminded me I wasn't real family, so I treated you like what you are, a criminal who happened to live in my mother's house." As they led him away, the 12 veterans formed 2 lines, 6 on each side, that he had to walk through. Marcus Williams. "I was 23. I had my whole life ahead of me." Jennifer Park. "I was a marathon runner. Now I run on carbon fiber." David Thompson. I can't remember my daughter's first words because of you. Each veteran said their piece, not shouting, not violent, just truth, delivered with military precision. By the time James reached the FBI vehicles, he was sobbing. Sarah ran after him. "Dad, this is a mistake. Tell them." James looked at his biological daughter, his real family, and said the truest thing he'd ever said. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry." Michael stood frozen, watching his hero father crumble. "It's all true?" he asked me. "Every word, every payment, every injury. But he's a war hero. The Medal of Honor. He earned that medal through real heroism 15 years ago. Then he came home and betrayed everything it stood for." Sarah turned on me, mascara running. "You could have stopped him years ago." "You're right," I said. "I should have. I put family loyalty above duty. That's my failure to carry." Director Hawkins approached. "Torres, we need your statement." As I walked toward the FBI vehicles, I heard Sarah say to Michael, "She's our sister. We treated her like garbage for 20 years, and she still protected him." "Until he said she wasn't family," Michael replied. "He did this to himself." The media coverage was instant and relentless. Medal of Honor recipient arrested. FBI stepdaughter exposes military corruption. Wounded warriors confront betrayer. But the interview that hit hardest was with Marcus Williams. "I don't hate Colonel Mitchell for what he did in Afghanistan that earned him the medal," Marcus said from his wheelchair. "I hate him for what he did when he came home. He had a choice between honor and money. He chose money, and people like me paid the price." The reporter asked, "What about his stepdaughter? Some say she should have acted sooner." Marcus looked directly into the camera. "That woman protected a man who treated her like dirt for 20 years. She did what she thought family does. He's the one who broke that bond, not her." That night, I sat in my apartment watching the coverage. My phone rang constantly. Reporters, colleagues, people I hadn't heard from in years. But only one call mattered. "Miha," Mom said, "I'm proud of you. For the first time in 20 years, I see you clearly. My daughter, my brilliant, brave daughter, who did the right thing even when it hurt. It should have been sooner. No, it happened when it needed to happen, when you were strong enough to survive it." 6 months later, I sat in the federal courthouse for James's sentencing. He'd been found guilty on all counts: conspiracy, fraud, criminal negligence resulting in permanent disability of service members. The judge, a Vietnam veteran, didn't hold back. "Colonel Mitchell, you took an oath to protect those under your command. Instead, you sold their safety for personal gain. 12 soldiers sit in wheelchairs because you wanted a comfortable retirement." He looked at the 12 veterans who'd come to witness sentencing. "Your sentence needs to reflect not just the crime, but the betrayal. 25 years in federal prison. Complete forfeiture of military benefits, including your pension. Restitution of $10 million to be divided among your victims." As they led James away, he stopped in front of me. "I'm sorry," he said, "for all of it. For 20 years of making you feel less than. You were more family than I ever deserved." "Now you understand," I said, "but understanding isn't absolution." "I know. I just wanted you to hear it." They took him away. No Medal of Honor, no military funeral when his time comes, no legacy except as a cautionary tale about honor corrupted. Mom and I walked out together. She'd lost weight, started painting again, joined a support group for families of convicts. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Empty," I admitted. "I thought I'd feel victorious." "That's because you're good, Miha. Good people don't celebrate destruction, even when it's necessary." A year later, I stood before Congress, testifying about military contractor fraud. The Mitchell case had exposed a network of corruption. We'd arrested 47 contractors, recovered $2 billion in fraud, and most importantly, new safeguards were in place to protect soldiers. "Deputy Director Torres," the senator asked, "your stepfather's case was highly personal. How can we trust your objectivity going forward?" I leaned into the microphone. Senator, for 5 years I prioritized personal feelings over professional duty. Soldiers were injured because I protected someone who didn't deserve it. I will carry that guilt forever. I looked at Marcus Williams in the gallery, there to support me. But that guilt makes me better at my job, because now I know the cost of hesitation. Now I know that family loyalty can't override duty to those who serve. Some would say, you waited for revenge. No, Senator. Revenge would have been destroying him quietly, privately. Justice meant doing it publicly, so those 12 veterans could face him, so other corrupt officers would see consequences. So the system could be fixed. 2 years later, I was promoted to Director of the Defense Fraud Division. The ceremony was small. Mom, Director Hawkins, some colleagues, and 12 veterans. Marcus Williams pinned the badge on my jacket from his wheelchair. You gave us justice, he said. That's worth more than walking. Jennifer Park, steady on her prosthetic, added, you showed us that family isn't blood, it's showing up. David Thompson, his speech clearer after years of therapy. You're our sister in arms, real family. Real family. From soldiers who'd lost so much, worth more than 20 years of James's conditional approval. Sarah and Michael Mitchell came too. We'd slowly built a relationship over the 2 years. We were wrong, Sarah said simply, about everything, about you, about what family means. We were kids. We were cruel. And we let him be cruel. That's on us. Michael added, you're our sister. Full stop. No qualifiers. Today I run a division that's prosecuted 127 contractors and saved over 500 military lives. Every case I think about those 12 veterans. Every conviction honors their sacrifice. On my desk are 3 photos. One is Mom and me at my promotion, finally free. One is the 12 veterans from James's ceremony, my chosen family. And one, surprisingly, is from last month, Sarah, Michael and me at Mom's birthday dinner. Becoming the siblings we should have always been. James writes from prison sometimes. I don't read the letters immediately, but I keep them. Maybe someday I'll be ready. Maybe not. But I did read one, sent on the anniversary of his arrest. Sophia, I'm writing this from my cell, thinking about the 8-year-old girl I failed to love. You deserved a father who saw your brilliance, your strength, your worth. Instead, you got me. Small, petty, insecure, racist. You became extraordinary not because of me, but despite me. And when I betrayed my oath for money, you still protected me for 5 years. That's real honor. The kind I preached but never practiced. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just telling you what I should have said 20 years ago. You are remarkable. You were always remarkable. I was just too threatened to see it. Your mother raised a warrior. I just lived in the same house. James. I folded the letter and put it back in the box. Not because I forgave him. That's a journey I'm not ready for. But because sometimes people need to speak their truth, even from prison, even too late. To everyone watching who's been told they're not real family, who's been excluded from celebrations they should have been part of, who's achieved everything and still been dismissed, remember this: your worth isn't determined by someone else's inability to see it. Your family isn't limited to people who share your DNA, and sometimes the greatest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly who they are, so you can choose to become exactly who you're meant to be. Don't dim your light to make others comfortable. Don't accept conditional love as if it's all you deserve. And never, ever let anyone tell you that you're not real family. Because family isn't blood. It's choice. It's showing up. It's protecting each other even when it's hard. But it's also knowing when to stop protecting people who wouldn't protect you. My name is Sophia Torres. I'm the director of the FBI Defense Fraud Division. I'm a stepdaughter who refused to accept second-class status. I'm a woman who chose justice over silence, and I'm finally, truly, completely free. Thanks for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right? And remember, the best revenge isn't destroying those who hurt you. It's building a life so magnificent they realize what they missed out on. Stay strong, stay proud, and never let anyone tell you you're not family enough. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks for listening.